Bethany.
And I'm Lauren.
Welcome to the Healing Collective podcast, where we explore the paradox of healing at the individual and the collective level.
Join us as we invite guests to share their personal paths to freedom. Everyone just soften into their chair. I'm going to honor myself for doing this podcast in my pajamas. As an act of resistance. And whatever feels so important and so urgent and so, whatever pressure is pushing on us, just ask us to welcome the pressure. Allow the pressure. Maybe even let the pressure move from wherever it is. Cycle it through your root chakra. Transmute it in your sacral chakra. Use the power of our feminine bodies to transition all energy into what we most want to create and experience. Bring it up through the heart chakra. Release it through the voice, release it through the body, shake it off, release it through the crown, cycle it again. Just honor the cycles and rhythms of the body and its miraculous ability to evolve, transmit, alchemize, whatever is here now into the greatest, highest experience and the medicine for all. My intention for the three of us is to create space in our consciousness to be a channel for whatever wants to come through. To surrender and be available to infinite possibilities, emergent processes. And to honor and bring forward the medicine that each of us offers to the healing of the collective. I feel like I want to say, in God's name we pray. Amen. Hashtag. And I haven't said that in 20 years.
I was just tuning into my body while we were doing this, and I've been getting this really cool kombucha company locally that makes these yummy, that's like a pineapple chamomile kombucha. And I drank one earlier, and then I grabbed another kombucha and had it right before my astrology lesson right before this. But I just realized that it has alcohol. So I'm one drink in right now, actually. And I was doing that.
I was.
Thing, and I was
power to you. Yeah.
I was right now.
I wish I was.
So Joyce, thank you for
I wanted to introduce you too. Let's just do a little intro.
Yeah. I actually have been on Zoom with you for early day Divine Feminine calls.
Yep. I remember seeing you. Yeah.
But I think that might be it. I think we run in real similar circles, but I think that might be our only touch points before today. Unless I'm wrong. But
Anthony and I know each other. She did coaches twice.
Really? Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm so impressed by people that do it twice.
I know, isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
And we met the second time around, and she has a main job, but she's also a coach for a Conscious Leadership Group now. And
so you actually work for the Conscious Leadership Group now? Okay, cool.
One of those elusive spots.
It's also important that she knows that we have pretty closely identical astrology charts, Bethany and I.
Yeah.
Ooh,
our birthdays are a day apart.
Yeah, a couple days apart. So Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury are
and our
all
sun sign.
We're all in the houses are different, but we're all in the same signs. And then I think our Mars might be different. And then, just our moon is different in the same sun sign. So it's kind of intense.
What's your sun, and what do you have the same rising and
We don't have the same rising. I'm a Scorpio rising and she's a Pisces rising, right?
But we're both Leos.
But we're
Okay.
both, yeah, Leo suns. Like most of our planets are the same except for our rising and our moon, and I think our Mars might
A
be.
Leo with a Pisces rising and a Leo with a Scorpio rising is so intense and like juicy to me.
What are you?
You said it.
I'm a Cancer with a Gemini rising.
Oh, wow. What's your moon?
Virgo.
Oh, I have an Aries moon.
Ooh, that's just like fire all the way across.
I know.
With like
I
this
know.
like intense watery rising.
Girl. that pretty much describes it. Like, yeah, that's my life.
Yeah.
But it's gotten a lot stronger as I got older.
Yeah. My moon's in Taurus, my 7th house.
So Taurus and Scorpio with Leo, that's like, to me, that just says like sensuality and like earthiness.
Yes.
Pretty
I mean, I don't
much.
have a ton of earth, but the moon is, I do feel very grounded by my moon sign, I think.
And Bethany's an 8 on the Enneagram.
Okay.
Strong 7.
And Joyce doesn't really know much about this podcast either. So basically, Beth and I run a circle right now. Is there anything else we do together?
Well, we were learning partners for like a year or so. Lauren has coached me and my friend.
Who's also male, who's also
Yeah, we've been on the
uncategorized. We have uncategorized relationships that we talk about on here.
same stuff. We're doing the same stuff. But we've been coaching each other for a year or so, like pretty regular communication. And yeah, we started
doing medicine work together.
We started doing circles. So there's our second, like we've been doing that since September. We're on our second circle. It's almost done. And then, yeah, we kept talking about some of the same stuff over and over again and hitting on some of these same themes. And yeah, we just decided to start talking to some of our community about some of the stuff. And so it's the Healing Collective podcast. So we're talking about the paradox of healing, because from a non-dual sense, maybe
There's
no
nothing
one
to heal.
but sort of like, what do we do? What are we thinking about? What are the tools? What have our experiences been around healing, both at the personal and the collective level, the individual and the collective level? And so getting people's stories about like what that all means to them, and also processing and just talking real time about the stuff we're learning about as far as healing goes.
And what we were talking about when you got on, just like a little overview, is we keep kind of getting in an entangled persona conflict when it comes to race. And there's more content about that, but I'll just speak for myself. Like, I'm doing mostly like affinity work and liberatory work outside, in my daily life, almost exclusively. And then we have the CLG circle, and I'm really confusing myself around consciousness and liberation and like race. And it's getting like, I'm really untangling what do I believe about all of this stuff and how it interacts, and I see where it conflicts. And then, Bethany and I are kind of like really exploring that and sometimes triggering each other around it.
Yeah, I think we kick off certain polarities in each other. And I'm grateful that this is the real stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this is the real stuff. This is the stuff that's like the scariest to talk about. It feels like it's in its own category sometimes. And I know all my patterning and like stuff comes up of like, do I know what I'm talking about right now? Like, do I have something to say, or do I have a right to even say that? And being scared, genuinely scared, like underneath all the 8 bluster, that I just really don't get it. Or that even the stuff that feels really true to me, that like I haven't earned the right to that truth, something like that. I've got some of that going on. And then of course, I like as an 8, I really X out feelings to some extent. And that's been a huge part of my journey, is like, how much can I access my own emotions and stay with that in my experience? So a lot of stuff comes up, a lot of feelings I don't want to feel come up around that conversation. So then I become that in the polarity of Lauren.
And how do you all decide like what each podcast is going to focus on? Is there like one universal theme and then or do you sort of just feel your way through each one?
I can answer that. Well, there's been kind of a pattern. The pattern has been, it's the Healing Collective. We kind of usually start some conversation that continues into the podcast, similar to today. But we ask each person, we start with kind of like, how do you want to be identified? Like if you were going to introduce yourself to the people listening.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we want to say like, we're doing this podcast for fun because we like to talk to people. Like we're not thinking about like, what's going to be best for our Instagram audience, or, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, we just want to record a conversation and see what the universe does. And it's done some really beautiful, cool things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first one is just like, how would you want people to know you? How do you identify yourself? How would you want people to know you in the world? And then we'll talk about and ask you, like, what do you think your medicine is? And what do you care about relative to healing the collective?
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of start with those 3 questions and see what unfolds.
Cool.
You ready?
So how do you identify? How would you talk about yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
The way I would identify is as a storyteller and someone who helps people to feel their feelings through storytelling. So I also identify as an artist and a creator. I think I identify as someone who like deeply nurtures whatever feelings want to emerge from the people that I interact with. I think that there's like, we were just talking about astrology, and in my Cancer, there's like a mother-child duality in me where I go back and forth between the two a lot. What else?
And you're a type 4 on the Enneagram?
Yeah. So I'm also in astrology terms, I'm also a Cancer with a Gemini rising and Virgo moon. I'm an Enneagram 4, and I actually find myself most in alignment when my 3, 4, and 5 all show up together. But as I get older, so these last probably 4 years, my 5 wing has really lit up.
How old are you?
I'm 39. I'll be 40 in July.
So we're very similar age.
Mm-hmm.
What does it? I'm so interested in what a 5 wing lighting up looks like for someone who's like deeply committed to feeling feelings. What does that look like?
It looks like a lot of gathering of materials and research, reading. I'm finding myself most happy when I'm exploring my intellect. So gathering lots of different like articles or reading about artists, or I'm a bit of a film fanatic, and so I love watching independent films from smaller directors. I love foreign films. The more I'm watching films in different languages, the happier I am these days. Music, I find myself being like a collector of information, and that feeling really like rich and good to me in a way that I haven't experienced as much before the last 4 or 5 years.
Have you seen, I don't know that it's necessarily from a small filmmaker, but Bliss, like the 2021?
I just watched that last night.
Lauren, I watched that last night. I was going to text you to watch.
I've told everyone I've talked to today to watch that movie.
I don't even know what it is.
Well, you will be watching that tonight.
Okay. Okay.
It had me like, Lauren and I got into it last night below line with each other, and then apparently we both ran.
Our first fight, though.
Maybe our first. I was before. Is that our first fight? We must have had other.
Anyways, moving on.
But it was feeding into it's kind of a psycho spiritual thriller kind of a thing.
Oh.
Mystery kind of deal.
Okay.
And but it was hitting right into my stuff around what is real? Do I even know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
how much of all of this is just my stories? And like all that stuff was up for me. Like, I couldn't fall asleep for a little while last night. I was thinking about it so much. It got me all turned on. So,
I love those kinds of movies where you stay up thinking about it.
well, you're not gonna get a lot of sleep tonight then. So,
Well, then, and also you both have to watch Malcolm and Marie. I watched that. Do you know what this movie is?
No.
It's on Netflix. Also, PS to the whoever's listening and to you, I don't watch TV or movies. This is like a big deal that I've like cared enough about these movies. But John David Washington, who's Denzel Washington's son, and Zendaya, who's on
I love Zendaya. She's on
what is that show on HBO?
Euphoria.
Euphoria, yeah. It is a 2-hour film that was made in 2 weeks during COVID. It's all in black and white. And the entire movie is a fight between them as a couple. But the thing that drew me in is the complexity of human relationship. I have never seen that level of complexity of human relationship personified through cinema. And I thought to myself, if I had grown up seeing this type of complexity in relationship in cinema, like I would not have the same perceptions about what relationships should or should not be. And like they go through it in our language, they go through lots of personas. They go through lots of ups and downs. They have moments that they show love, contempt, like everything. And I can imagine, like, from whatever awareness you're experiencing the movie, I could see some people being like, I hate it. I think I could see some people being like, they have a toxic relationship. There's so many layers, but I was really, really moved by it.
Have you, either of you watched I May Destroy You?
Yeah, I loved it.
Wait, why does that say familiar? Who's in that?
I think the creator her name's Michaela Cohen.
Oh, the HBO series. No, okay.
Lauren, I think you will really like it. And I don't even want to talk about it because it's so unexpected that just to experience it with no like preconceived notions of what it should be or what good looks like it's one of the best things I've seen in the last year, probably. Yeah.
Oh, I trust you. I'll definitely check that out. Well, I'd love to know, like, Joyce, what do you in this now moment, because tomorrow could be different, yesterday could be different. In this now moment, what is your medicine that you bring to the world, and in what ways do you see yourself bringing that medicine?
Another would be like your gift, like your prescribed gift.
I think it's what I talked about earlier, which is using stories to help people feel their feelings. And I'm starting to think this is my zone of genius in conscious leadership terms. And because I'm able to experiment with that in all the facets of my life. So if I look at, I have a very corporate job, so I work in tech, and I'm the leader of a large team, and I'm also a filmmaker, and I did a documentary film in 2016 about a refugee family from Africa that got separated and then reunited. And I always thought that and I had done some documentary pieces in the world of marketing and advertising before that was all about, that explored like people's dreams and whether those dreams would become a reality, and people being in touch with how that makes them feel to have a dream and want to realize it, and whether you do or you don't, just that gray area. So I think I always thought that this ability to translate a story into something that would help people release feelings, almost like it in a scaled way, because all different people will watch and have a different reaction, but there's something in them that opens when they watch these stories. I thought that was something that was unique to filmmaking. And then when I started this job that I've been in for 3 years, I realized that I could do that as a manager. So how I told my stories, and the more I revealed about myself and the more vulnerable I was about what I would share with my team, the more it would unlock in them and give them permission to be their authentic selves and feel whatever they're feeling in the moment. And so much of the workplace is repressed emotions, and it just can create a lot of toxicity. So I noticed that I could be a better manager if I started to really lean into that. And then I started conscious leadership circles at work. And so I think we've trained now definitely over 100 people in the last 2 years in these circles. And a big part of why I have a whole body yes to these circles at the company I work at versus even one-on-one coaching is because we're in these circles and we're using prompts to talk about how some of these principles around consciousness resonate with us, where things have shown up in our lives, and then sharing those stories with each other. And it creates like a real bonding and like a collective release of repressed feelings and a way for people to just know each other at a much deeper feelings, emotions-based level than we really get to do in the place that I work.
Can
I'm
I
so turned on by that.
Yeah, you said, I'm curious, like I heard you say, helps that film or storytelling can help people release feelings. And I think it's probably easy, or maybe a more traditional way to think about films or storytelling in general is like it makes you feel something. It's something new. It's that story, and you're tuning into this new thing and feeling something about that. And I'm interested in what you said about how it connects us to our own self and stuff that's sort of maybe hanging on in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that and what you mean.
Give an example, maybe. Give an example. That's what I was thinking. Like, I'd love for us to try it on. Like, what's an experience that you had where you helped someone?
I'll give you two examples. So
beautiful.
One happened yesterday. So I have a meeting with my leadership team every week. And in the beginning, we share something we're grateful for and some mistake that we made the past week. It's how we open every weekly meeting. And in my gratitude, I wrote how thankful I was for my partner, Scott. And I just talked a little bit about how he makes me feel and how appreciated and supported I feel of him and how much joy that brings me. And I got emotional talking about it. And then my team, it was really silent at first. And then they were all smiling. And one of them said, "It really feels like you're in the room with us. Thank you." He said thank you like 3 times for telling us that. And so that level of like sharing joy and my gratitude with them really brought us closer together in that moment. And then in some of the feedback that I've been getting lately, they say that when I express my joy, it really inspires them and helps unlock their joy for the things that they have that are not work related particularly. And then another example that I have is I'm working on a screenplay. So my 5 wing is taking screenwriting classes at night. And I've been working on a screenplay about my own experience growing up in an Asian American family that immigrated from Taiwan in the early 80s. And I grew up with like a physically abusive and I would say emotionally abusive father. And I think that it is also a very specific experience to Asian people of my generation, because there are some cultural differences in the way that you raise your kids and how you punish them and how violence shows up in these types of families, but that are not common in American culture. And so it wasn't something that was discussed, but it was something that was widely experienced. That was like a cultural thing. So when I started to draft this screenplay, there were 2 conversations I had. One was with a coworker who was Korean, and another was with a producer who runs like a big production company who's Thai. And I just mentioned the synopsis of what I was writing. And I just said very openly, this is about my own experience with growing up with violence. And it's a story about my sister and I and how we looked for love in the wrong places. And both of them immediately wept just hearing the synopsis, and then talked to me about the weight that they had been carrying their whole lives around this issue and the feelings that they've not felt around this issue because they've never talked about it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful how you can connect with people so quickly like that.
I love also like what you talked about. Like, I really resonated with this experience of like what you said. Like, first I thought it was only through cinema, and then I go in this company and I could replace company with this system, right? And it's a repressed and clenched system. And when we open people and we allow the energetic flow to move and connection to move, it shifts the system, which is exactly what I experience happens in an individual body when we support, like exactly what you're saying. You opening that through your own story and your own authenticity opened up a part of them, and they're available for more flow, and they're available for more energy. And that is medicine work. Like that is exactly what medicine work is. On every level of it.
And it's these little experiences, even this small exchange between me and my team yesterday. Those are the days that I come home and I'm like, I had the best day. Or, I mean, I am home all day, but like those are the days where I'm like, I feel amazing. I had the best day. And it's just these little, seemingly little interactions that lets me know maybe that is my medicine. Maybe that is my genius. Because I feel so aligned to my purpose when I have those exchanges.
Yeah, filled up, not taxed by the process, but filled up and energized by it.
Yeah.
Well, then with the next question, like, I mean, you can answer this in any way you want, but I'm just so curious, like, do you think about healing the collective? Do you care about it? Are you intentional about it? Where does your mind go when we talk about healing the collective?
I think about it through the lens of filmmaking, and I'm sure that this will continue to evolve. But one of the best experiences of my life was making the doc short that I worked on with my partner, Emily Moore. We did this doc called Refugee, and it was an amazing experience to make it. But one of the best experiences was touring it at film festivals all across the US. And when the lights go up and you see an audience in tears and how available they are to have a conversation with you after that, and how by creating that foundation of like feelings and empathy, then we were able to talk about a different topic, which was immigration and family separation and reunification, and come at it through a much more open, curious, willing to learn kind of place, because that's where we were starting, from this common place. That was one of the best experiences in my life. And I was lucky enough to get to do that a bunch of times. And so in the screenplay that I'm writing now, my hope is to be able to make this film. I will make this film, and I will be able to talk to audiences about it. And that to me is collective healing, because so many people can see this story and whatever opens up in them. And then they're more available to have a conversation with anybody in their life about it. It doesn't have to be with me in a movie theater. It can be, wherever. But to me, that is a kind of collective healing, because films or media or entertainment have the power to reach people at scale, which can really be harnessed for positive things.
And we're all similar ages, so even the gap between how accessible content and media was when we were growing up, like what Lauren just said about that film, like, oh, if I had this when I was a kid, I would have had a totally different idea about relationships and how they work. Like, we have access to so much more now.
Yeah.
And even the film that you will make, I love how you corrected yourself on that language, but the film you will make, like, you'll get to talk to the people you talk to in person, but then also it'll be able to reach so many people. And so I think that that's why we're at like a real moment, because we have so much more access than we ever had before. And I'm learning astrology. I have a tutor, and I'm like going really deep learning astrology. And I'm like, there's so many tools, there's so many maps, there's so much accessible podcasts, like there's so much available to people. I just wonder what that's going to look like growing up, where you can access so much information and so much connection and so much many resources. Like, it just feels so supportive.
Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of my life, I've had an upper limit or a belief that that my voice isn't powerful enough to do collective healing. I don't know that I use those words, but that it wasn't powerful enough to reach people at scale. It wasn't big enough or important enough to move masses. And I had a huge awakening through a medicine journey that I did, which I talked to Lauren about like 6 months ago, where I was sitting in that journey, and I realized that it doesn't matter. It just matters that I have a point of view. Like that's all that matters, is that I have a point of
I got
view,
chills.
and that's what authorship is. It's about having a point of view, and it can be about the small things. It doesn't have to be about the big things. And that there's so much beauty and so much that we can learn about these details and these small things, or, small things in life. That's part of my point of view, and the way that I look at the world is through these details. And I feel like a lot of creative energy around what I used to think was like a smaller existence or voice. The power of that to move things and to move the masses, or to speak to the collective, as much as, somebody that's doing, I don't, bigger things or more dramatic things, or has 20,000 people following them on Instagram, or runs a huge company or something.
Well, I'm thinking of it as like, I'm literally feeling it and seeing like almost like injecting empathy into the body of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
When you say like the small things, like what I'm learning about consciousness is we grow and ascend and expand and integrate when we expand the places our awareness can go. And even what we think about like patriarchy, white supremacy culture, all of these things, even professionalism, capitalism, they've just been constructs that have molded where we believe our awareness can go.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we pull back those structures, the more our awareness is like, I can go anywhere. I could actually even go outside of time and space. Like I can go anywhere. But then what's happening, even in my one-on-one relationship, it's like, I want so much to experience connection with this person. And a lot of times I cannot find the place in awareness that he is.
Mm-hmm.
And even he tries to use his words and tries to help me to go to that place and imagine or get there, and I can't, and vice versa. But I think about how when I watch a movie, that's what makes the movie so beautiful, is when the filmmaker can help me experience that person and that character and all of the levels of awareness that they're experiencing. And then I guess adding this experience I had last night is it really expanded to me the level of complexity that can be expressed through a script, and an awareness. So I'm like, over here, it's like injecting empathy into the masses versus running a giant corporation that makes billions of dollars. I mean, we could really play the game of like, which one is more influential, which one is more impactful? How do we really define impact around those things?
And I'm sure there's some interesting tension between where I see a lot of social media and the world going, in terms of like what's loud and fast and gets your adrenaline going, and is, that compared to stillness and details and the things that are small and the things that are quiet. Like what's more, I think they can be equally powerful, and I'm excited about exploring those quiet details.
When I became a certified hypnobirthing practitioner, and so part of the coursework is around hypnosis and the basics around hypnosis. And this is going back quite a while, but one of the things that they taught us early on was as ways to explain the altered state of consciousness that hypnosis is like when you watch a movie. They said, when you watch a movie, like you're zoomed in on the film, like you're not paying attention to like the color of the drapes in the room or even the temperature of the room. Sometimes you get so zoned into what's happening that you're actually in an altered state of consciousness, taking in this story and like feeling it and being with it. You're holding your breath while the person, and that it's a true altered state. And I think that really feeds into the medicine metaphor that we're using here for you, like how this is your medicine, because it sounds like actually cultivating those altered states where people are open and receptive and available in a way that we aren't maybe when we're busy all day and doing life or running around or whatever like that. Has anyone ever described it to you like that?
No.
Consciousness?
I love that though.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I also like my mind goes to like, and I've actually been saying this to Bethany, certain things like this, like what if the altered state of consciousness, which goes back to the Bliss movie too, is this state of consciousness where we're not connected like that? What if that's the alter, like where the fact that we live in a culture where people don't feel openly and share openly and storytell, like, and what if we're just actually in these stories and these moments bringing people back to the truth of who they are, the truth of like the more true reality that exists. Yeah.
I think that feels true. Like I have this like I have like a body experience of truth. I wouldn't say I've had a lot of it, but I think it happens, and I feel it typically happens in some sort of altered state, even if the altered state is presence, like actual availability to the moment and what's present in a given moment. Joyce, I'm curious about, like, I heard you talk about joy, and then I guess I heard like talking with those guys about your film, like some sadness and guilt, maybe it sounded like. What is your experience around specifically storytelling and shame? Because you've done the coaches program. I wonder if you've done a shame circle, but like talking about the stuff that we have deep shame around, for me, my experience of that has been extremely healing. What's your experience of that? Or do you have any thoughts about it?
I too have found it extremely healing, although when I first got in the practice of it through CLG, it gave me extreme anxiety. And I think it's because I had a long held belief or story for myself that I was somebody who was brokenhearted, or I am somebody who's brokenhearted, and that makes me different. And that's something that I need to hide, and it needs to be kept in the shadow. And the more I've been doing this work, and the more I've been able to share the stories of my shame and my brokenheartedness, the more I realize that it's not the thing that makes me different. It's the thing that makes me the same. And if I can get to this place and share it, maybe anybody that hears my stories can feel a hint of that sameness. And maybe it might resonate with them at a frequency that isn't that thought, but they feel it. They feel the sameness. And then hopefully it encourages them to share as well, or to open up as well. And then we all start to experience that sameness.
I love how that even connects to your Enneagram type. Like
yeah.
And the specialness of this experience, and then part of your medicine has helped you even undo the part of your personality that was holding the specialness of this thing, where it actually, you're allowing it to help you connect to other people and help them connect to you and experience healing through the sameness, like the polarity of that. That's really beautiful. And for anyone that doesn't know, type 4s are really into the idea of like individuality and being different. So hearing a type 4 praise sameness and talk about it as medicine is pretty cool. And I would say, like, makes me feel like you've done your work.
I'm on mute, but I also think about the way I connected to you is like I'm a brokenhearted person. Like the story I guess I've been telling is like every time my heart breaks, it expands the love that I can hold. And I've been really playing with like titrating heartbreak and seeing how heartbreak was. The story I tell myself is that heartbreak, when I felt it young, was so big, and my body was like, this is too big for my body. I can't hold this. But what it was really saying is the energy of love is so big that I want to shatter. And as I get older, I'm like, okay, I'm going to survive heartbreak, and I'm going to feel it all the time. And now it feels like it's almost, I do wish I was more of a visual artist, because there's so many things in my mind I want to like communicate visually. But it's like if my heart was like made of glass, and every time something happens, the glass starts to crack. Like I can feel the little cracks in the glass, and then it keeps cracking, and then it bursts. And then the next time the glass is built, it's bigger. There's a
Mhm.
bigger container. So I don't know. I actually think that is such a medicine of being a 4, and the way that that part of my personality manifests, and I would make up yours manifest, is that brokenheartedness, or however, we could switch it and say that open-heartedness.
Yeah, I love the way that you just talked about that and the way you visualize the glass case that is the heart. And I remember talking to my partner about this, that every time life has handed me, or the universe has handed me, heartbreak or heartache, it's just opened my capacity for love and for understanding love in a way that is so joyful on the other side that it leaves me in a state of complete wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wonder, well, what else can I hold? If I can hold this, what else can I hold?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the awe, to me, the awe-inspiring experience is like, I did not think I could love like this. I actually didn't think I could stand it, that my body could even hold the energy of it, and the more it's like, who else could I love? What else could I love? How else could love manifest if I keep moving? And that is such a pull. So it's like the avoidance of heartbreak is a pull one direction, but that awe of what's possible is such a pull forward that I'm like, I'm just going to keep breaking my heart. It's just going to keep breaking.
Right. And what's funny about the whole topic of heartbreak is, as I've been writing this screenplay, and the first act begins with my sister and I and what we experienced, I had a few friends read it who are creatives, and their one universal comment was, this is heartbreaking to read. And I take that as a compliment, because I'm sharing my broken heart and trying to find that sameness and just sending those vibrations into the world and seeing what it connects with. And then I think that if a film can help to break people's hearts, even in an hour and a half or 2 hours, then it's doing that thing where it's just a little bit of opening. And what else can we hold? Can we talk? Do we want to talk about it? Do we want to think about it?
Which goes back to empathy, because when our heart has broken around something and we see someone else's heartbreak, we care in a way that we do not care when we can't connect to that heartbreak. I mean, that even comes up for me, like in my work around race, is like, I did this group, and it was white parents who had adopted Black foster children. And it was like a whole group of parents. And it was the first time I worked in an affinity space where I didn't have to like convince them that these issues were real, because they had faced them with their own children. And I just thought, like, to me, that's the gift of heartbreak. And even when we're in spaces like that, like people, and I see how much, like when we do conscious leadership circles, people are they fight heartbreak more than our nervous system will do everything to fight it. And I just wonder if we normalized it, right? Like what would that be like if we normalized heartbreak as just a beautiful gift of the human experience?
Yeah. And I think that the arts is one way that it has been acceptable.
Yes.
It's a way in.
And in Bliss, that movie, one of the things I really love, so they're basically kind of teetering in 2 dimensions, right? In one dimension, everything's like perfect, kind of utopian, whatever. So they create a way to go into a dimension of suffering, which is more like what we know now in America. It was basically more like present day United States. And she said the reason she did it was because in this utopia, there was depression and angst and a feeling of something missing, because they didn't have the contrast of suffering to appreciate the beauty of what they had. Yeah. And that has really, really stuck with me and been a constant kind of message in the universe for me, is like, it is a both and, and how important both sides of that polarity are.
Has Diana Chapman talked to you guys about her daily tears practice? Did she bring that up with you guys?
No.
I've heard her a little bit. Jim talks about it too. He has a little something like that.
Yeah,
they make it into every podcast. P.S. They're like our ghost visitors.
But it struck me because definitely when I started coaches, I was very much so avoiding heartbreak and it took a long time in a state of shock, I think, just around as many feelings as I was around. And when Diana told me she had this daily tears practice, that like what Lauren just said, like whenever, you know, her or her little friend group finds something that makes them cry, they send it to everybody. Like daily tears, daily tears. It can be like those viral videos on Facebook where the kids are big colorblind and they put the glasses on and they cry, or like whatever it is.
Good one. That's a good one.
Like I want my heart to break every day because it's bigger. I want my capacity bigger. I want to feel everything, like have this full experience of life. And I was like, oh, I never really thought about it like that before. But there is something that pulls us to those. There's something that really pulls us to those things that, especially if it's like a video online or something that we have some space from, there's something draws us into that kind of thing. And it's the same thing that I think wants to be happening all the time in our own experiences that we mostly avoid and X out, I would say.
I love this idea that like, and correct me if I'm totally misinterpreting, but what I'm kind of boiling down what you're saying, Joyce, is healing the collective is about sharing our stories and kind of normalizing the experience of heartbreak so that we're more available to talk to each other.
Yeah, I think it's a way for us to be more connected to ourselves and to be more connected to each other. And it's that embodied experience of it too. So you hear the story, and then oftentimes when you're being told the story or you're watching a story, you're not trying to like over rationalize somebody else's story.
Right. Or defend against it or be like, that's not what happened.
It's not like directly threatening your ego the way a breakup would of your own relationship. So then, you can be present to it and then connect to it. And some part of you might open up because of that. And then it becomes this like cycle of connection and sameness. But I think there's something about that embodied experience and being available for it in a way that maybe you otherwise wouldn't in an experience of heartbreak.
And then the idea that like through media, through cinema, through that type of storytelling, it can like reach the masses in a way, both like depth, breadth, and speed, right? It's access, like all of those things support that medicine to spread like a vaccine is what I'm seeing, or, you know, quickly.
Give people a little bit so that they can just tolerate a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one thing that's I'm a little like, I'm noticing, I'm questioning. So I'm so drawn into your storyteller, the screenplay. And then over here, you're like, and I work in a tech company and, you know, but what I know is like the universe uses everything, like nothing is out of place. So I'm so curious, like how this work that you've been doing the last 3 years, how you see it fitting into this bigger picture of what your medicine is and what you're bringing to the world.
A lot of my experience working in a very corporate environment has surprised me and just like left me in a state of wonder around how can I be my most authentic self? How do I stay grounded and stay with myself, even in a company of 50,000 people in a very corporate place that's not touchy-feely, that's not feelings-based? And what does being a great leader look like when faced with those challenges? And so I've really had to do the work on myself around, first, I need to know authentically who I am, because one of the things I've learned in this very dense place is if you can connect to yourself and shine your brightest light, people will come to you, actually. You don't have to try to be a great leader. If you're just your best self and you try to show up as you and go after the things that resonate with you, then you become a lighthouse. And anybody that's interested in those things or has similar values is going to come towards you. And so that's something that I've been able to experiment with a lot of people. And it's encouraged me to like go after the things that I have a whole body yes to, because when I don't have the same interaction with that many people. It's a different experience. Another thing, what else have I learned there? I mean, I don't always agree with some of the structures. And so who do I want to be in the face of that kind of adversity? And when I don't agree, how do I want to show up? And can I notice and have self-awareness around when there's like a residue, when I've compromised my integrity or compromised what my values are? And just navigating that for myself, it served me with a lot of adversity in the form of structures or in the form of people that maybe I don't align with from a values perspective.
What were some big healing moments for you? Like, what even made you aware of the concept of healing? Like, what have been some one or two key moments in your life where you felt like something really moved, released, shifted, healed, that you feel comfortable sharing?
I mean, I went through a divorce 3 years ago. That was a big bottom for me.
Mm.
And it was heartbreaking, and it woke me. Had I not gone through that divorce, I don't think I would have started working on myself in the way that I have. I guess it was more than 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And I think what I learned in that relationship and the demise of that relationship was how much I was unconsciously living in a fear state. That I had a history of being in a violent household. I was scared of anger and anything around the feeling of anger. And I really tried to like control that in myself. And then I would control it on everybody around me. And so my need to control things and how scared I was all the time of not being able to control it, just became a prison that I created for myself and my partner. And it just suffocated us. And I think that there were things about, I've been reading some David Dida stuff, and I think there were things around masculinity that scared me. And then I would over rotate towards masculinity. There were things about my own femininity that scared me. And I became like hyper masculine as part of, I don't know, who I thought I needed to be to rotate against everything that I perceived to be as weak or not good enough, or somebody that could be taken advantage of, or I was always afraid of being a victim. So I really over rotated against that and became this like very masculine person. And I didn't even realize that I was doing that until I got divorced and I had to look at all of this in myself.
Sounds pretty 80. Like not wanting to be the victim and being really scared and overcompensating and creating like a big blustery, like it sounds like pretty 8 on the Enneagram. 80 is what I mean. Like it sounds real familiar over here, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, or just like not being able to accept help from people. So,
yeah, I have to be strong. It's not okay.
Yes.
I have to be strong to survive. That
yes.
is unconscious belief of the 8.
So I found myself in a pattern where I both hated the idea of being heroed because I never wanted to be a victim. I would never accept help. And then I would date these guys who I would swoon if they like did these romantic gestures, if they opened the door, if they would do things that were like the role of a man sweeping you off your feet or almost like a man saving you, that whole idea. And so I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Everything is like clashing with each other inside of me, because do I want that or am I fighting against it? And it was so mixed up in me.
So how did you heal?
Yeah, so you looked at it. I get the timing of you even looking at it. What has it shifted? Is it different now? Does it feel different?
Yeah, it feels really different now. I think just having awareness of my patterns and seeing all the places where it was showing up, and then how much it was caused by not really loving myself, how much I was resisting feelings, which is so funny because I've always been a feelings person. My sister and I were just talking about this the other day. We had two very different experiences of the same childhood because she is a 7/8, and she tends to not express things other than excitement, enthusiasm. And I was a 4 child, and I was just like always in my feelings. But there were so many feelings that I was resisting because I deemed them as like being weak or being a victim, that until I was able to let go of that resistance, could I access deeper things that were going inside of me, like my really deep sadness and my really deep anger, and that those weren't bad things, that there didn't need to be shame around that. So as I started to explore being in those feelings and accepting myself, and persona work really helped me. I know it helps everybody, so that probably sounds obvious, but just like accepting my younger selves that never really had a chance. They never stood a chance in the house that I was raised in, and the way that I tried to survive. I just always shut them down, or I didn't accept them. And so now being able to see them and name them and accept them has been so freeing for me.
And I don't even think we need to rush past I know persona work helps everyone thing, because I don't think we've talked about it much on this podcast, only like we've kind of talked around it so far. But like I was listening, the new episode that came out today, I think the 10% Happier had Richard Schwartz, which is like the internal family systems, who's sort of pioneered some persona work kind of stuff. Not a lot of people, I feel like, know about it. I mean, even Jungian persona stuff is like kind of poo-pooed in a lot of psychological circles. So what we do in CLG world, I don't think people are getting that all over the place necessarily. I think it's like, not necessarily totally normalized, at least not necessarily in the psychiatric field, although it's becoming more and more so with IFS and everything that he's doing. But I have found that to be absolutely true too with persona work. Like, I mean, and then once you have that agency, once you know what you're up to, and then you can kind of choose, you have more agency. Like if you're going to keep doing it the way you've been doing it or do it another way, it's so empowering. And that resonates over here as like an experience of deep healing, kind of talking to our different parts. And for anyone that's listening doesn't know, like, seeing all the different parts of ourselves as personas that have strategies that are trying to get our needs met, and not being so fully merged with whatever's happening that we can't even see how triggered or scared or like what that persona even really wants as its highest goal, and just being kind of on autopilot reacting to stuff. That is medicine. That is medicine for people. And for anyone listening, check out Richard Schwartz on 10% Happier, and he's done a bunch of other podcasts too. I think he's done Coaches Rising and some other stuff. But
yeah, it's been such a powerful experience, such a powerful tool for me, not constantly being in a state of reactivity. So just noticing when I start acting from a place of being in reactivity, and then pausing and deciding how I want to move forward.
Oh, the way I understand personas in myself, and it kind of goes back to this other bigger thing of like what blocks emotional energetic flow. And so I think about our each of us as like these energetic solar systems, and that like there were these moments in our history where the energy of emotion was bigger than what our nervous system wanted to allow. And so we fought, flew, froze, we did something, and it crystallized the memory, and it held it, and it kept that block. And it was like, we're going to keep this clogged. And anytime anything feels like this, it hits the clog in the energetic field. And then those little clogs start to be like, well, this is who I am. I don't like people who talk like this. I don't like situations like this. I'm not a person who gets angry. Whatever it is that we tell ourselves as we build our personality around those energetic blocks. And when we start to do persona work and we start to be like, oh, like, okay, one, I'm triggered. Like, is all of me triggered? And we go back and we're like, oh no, that started when I was 7 years old, and that energetic block got created. And I believe our consciousness is time traveling to that moment, and that in persona work, we're creating a restorative moment that opens up the energetic field and allows it to integrate, which is for sure what happens in medicine work, especially on MDMA around like PTSD, is like, it's just energetically creating the body in a space that the body will let you access things that were overwhelming to it in the past. And so, yeah, I just think that it goes back to kind of where we started, which is telling our story, right? Because that's another way we tell our story is personas. That's a piece of our story. That's a part of who we are that makes up the entire narrative of Lauren or Joyce or Bethany. And someone else shares this story, we project it onto someone else and they become that. So then we remember our own story, and the persona work is us creating empathy for our own story.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Like, I'm going to accept this and I'm going to feel the feelings around it. And
where I can access a level of compassion for myself through the stories in persona work that I otherwise can't.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think that connects to collective healing, because what I see is when we create the most disconnection in relationships is when we look over there and we're like, I don't like that persona in you. I don't like that part in you, or I can't relate to that part in you. Mm-hmm. And 9 times out of 10, that part is in us.
Yeah.
I did, we do these, now I do these like CLG kind of like organic groups. And Donna, this amazing woman, she led us in a meditation about our X'd out personas. And one of my X'd out personas was this one that's like, I just love so much, and it hurts so much how much I love. And like, we all 3 might have that one. And so I brought that one to the table and some others like her. And then just organically in my meditation, on the other side of the table was like all these narcissist people that I label as like having narcissist traits. And I realized through that meditation that I also have this persona that's telling that one that's like, I love so much. That's like, you're so weak. What is wrong with you? Get over that. Like, I can't stand you. And that those I'm projecting onto these people that I call narcissists, and I can't accept the narcissist in me. I can't accept those parts of me. And that as a result, I'm creating this in my reality. I think it goes for so many things, but I just really believe that part of healing the collective is us realizing that what we're averse to in others lives in us and wants our own love and acceptance.
That has been such a huge area of learning for me, and how I'm able to relate to other people and connect to other people. So just the other day, I got triggered because my partner was talking about some celebrity that's really hot and like sensuous. And I have a part of me that's X'd out, that's like hot and sensuous and like very sexual. And I noticed I had aversion to his statement. And then I was like, well, what's that about? And the younger me would have that would have been a problem between us, you know, like, I don't like that. Why
and you need to stop saying it. It would be like, don't say that again, or you hurt my feelings, or like,
yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
Right.
But my newer self was like, why is there aversion here? And I was like, oh, right, because I X out my sexual one so much. And actually, she wants to come out more, and she wants to play here more and be seen and be accepted. And then I thought to myself, well, actually, there's so much of that one I've X'd out of me in him and why I like him. So what I said to him was, what I noticed about you saying that was, I see so much of that like sensuality in you, and I see it in me, and like that is so welcome here. And then I just, that was such a pivotal relationship conversation that I could flip an aversion to this is all welcome here,
or even an attraction almost. Yeah,
and say it's all welcome here, and I want to welcome it in myself, and that I'm going to do this work with my partner and have this conversation is like, me 2 years ago would not have been able to imagine that.
Well, I'm so happy about that because I can hear myself from below the line now because you said that something about my astrology was sensual. And I was like, oh God, she's averse to me. Oh God. But now I know it's all welcome here. So thank you for that.
I mean, I'm all about it like that. I'm exploring that one in me, and I'm inviting her out to play a lot more because I'm so much more aware of, these little aversions that come up and like, oh, what's that about?
Well, I just met you today mostly, but like, I see it in you. I mean, I'm just looking at you, I'm experiencing that. I mean, the way, like, you're glowing, like you're literally dewy glowing, like you're.
Yeah, you ooze sensuality, Joyce, and we block it from ourselves. Like it could be just like pouring out.
It's X'd out from you, but it's out here. I see it.
She's out to play. Thanks for bringing her today.
Feels great.
All right, we're coming in for a landing here. Is there anything that you want to say to be even more known or even feel complete around this chat, Joyce?
No, I'm feeling very like tingly and buzzy and open having this conversation with the two of you. What a highlight of my day it's been.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting to see the dynamic between the two of you has been really, I don't know, there's something about it that just puts a smile on my face. This friendship, whatever is happening between the two of you, it's nice to be in it with you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to stamp real quick that like when we talked about shame, right? Like your ability to be curious in that moment with your partner, right? Over here, it means that you've surpassed like any deep shame that you might have had before about your belief about yourself and your worthiness and being in relationship, and how much like that allows for the curiosity, that you modeled. And I think that is really I don't know that we have. Before I met people in conscious leadership, like I didn't have a vision of that kind of curiosity or even that level of like moving through a trigger or, any of that. So I think you modeled like a really beautiful example. And then I think if people listening are like, how would I ever even get to curiosity from the place that I'm feeling? It kind of goes back to how do we heal the shame? And we heal the shame through self-acceptance and accepting the parts of us that we X out. I'm thinking about. And I just think it's so beautiful. Like every one of these conversations, like they're just winding roads. So we never that we talk about so many beautiful things. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like I never would have expected we'd talk about that or that or that.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing your magic.
Thank you for having me in your space.
Yeah.
Let us know when your movie's coming out.
Right. I was about to say, I'm there.
Working on it.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to close. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hope to see you.
Hope to be in touch. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, if you've got any feedback for us, we welcome it, or ideas about future guests, email us at healingcollectivepod@gmail.com. Our website is thehealingcollectivepodcast.com. We are at Healing Podcast on Twitter, and we are at Healing Collective Podcast on Instagram. Special thanks to Monda Creative, who edits all of our podcasts, and Two Tall Women Productions, who produce. Thank you.